Hello, my name's Barry. Welcome to Christianity Explained, where my goal is to share Bible teaching, church culture, and occasional reviews of books and sermons. If you don't know, there's a relatively new YouTube channel uh, called Minor Prophet uh, Podcast. They they are these gentlemen, the hosts are charismatic, and they have a heart for confronting the issue that of false leaders and false pop, all that stuff here that's happening and causing all kinds of havoc. And I commend them for it. And it's not an easy task. That I have no doubt. And it's not always fun to watch. However, from what I've seen, these guys do their best to do with a heart of love, mercy, all that. Great. Now, let's get to today's video. These gentlemen um, apparently arranged to do an interview of the two main hosts, two shows of a very popular, uh, charismatic podcast, video podcast called Remnant Radio. You probably know them, Joshua Lewis and Mike Miller, if I hopefully got it correct. when they, I'm not going to share the whole thing. The the interview was well over an hour, but I just want to target on specific clips, and we're going to discuss what's going on. If you don't know, Remnant Radio hasn't always been the one to jump out and say, "This is a bull." It took a process. Well, I'll start the video and let the guys explain it some things themselves, and I'll bring up some comment as we move forward.
Him in our next video. Welcome, guys. I'm so glad you're here at the Minor Prophets podcast. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about prophetic ministry and good things. And then both of us sort of found ourselves caught up in drama. And to be honest with you, I hate it. But it really feels like this is what God is doing within the church right now. This is kind of what prophetic ministry is in the scriptures. You look at most of the prophets are just sort of like confronting people. John the Baptist.
Yeah, he's right. John the Baptist confronted people who came up to him and at the Jordan. Jeremiah confronted the leaders and others. Ezekiel did his own confrontation when people came to him. Yeah. And they didn't always do it in the mushy love that we think today. And so, yeah, and it is part of what a prophet had to do. And of course, there's always a bit of grace and diplomacy, like Nathan had to do with David.
Baptist being one prime example. So we want to talk about like what got you guys into podcasting, sort of talk about how you guys got into this space of confronting spiritual abuse and prophetic manipulation and lying in the name of God. And then we want to talk about the true prophetic and maybe have you guys share some stories. And so, Josh, I know you're kind of...
Yeah, Joshua is the guy who started the saying, I'm not going to go on to the true all that. I'm just going to stick with the beginning part about exposing and confronting. I will put a link to the original video so you can enjoy the whole thing if you are so inclined.
Kind of like the boss of all of the guys over there at Remnant Radio.
Totally take no responsibility for them whatsoever. I'm definitely not anyone's boss. But yeah, I did start Remnant. I'll take credit for that, but that's about it. And I do view Remnant very much as a partnership. So as much as I got it off the ground in 2017, I wouldn't be the same guy had it not been for Michael Miller and Michael Roundtree both. So 2017, I started a podcast in a closet, kind of a balcony closet of my church.
With like no, like you had to crawl to get in there.
Yeah, I could touch the ceiling while sitting down, and I'm not a very. I mean, I do have freakishly long arm span, but that's about it. I'm not very tall. Matt Chandler, not Nephilim approved. He's like hitting his head on clamp lights from Home Depot.
He's a giant
with
too.
Cardboard
He's so
boxes attached to him. Yeah. Oh yeah, he couldn't make it into that room very well. And then our cameras were iPhones on selfie sticks inside of a microphone stand, and because I couldn't afford tripods, I had to put a whole bunch of duct tape around the selfie stick so it would slide into the handle of the microphone stand and it would hold the phone at us. And yeah, they were the best of times, the worst of times. And Miller came on as a guest. He eventually became a co-host because we just hit it off, had some really good chemistry. We kept finding ourselves in conversations where we were like, why aren't we taping this? This is awesome. This is why we're doing this, right?
We would disagree on things. I mean, that was the thing. Yeah, lots of things. And we're like, this is the kind of conversation people would like to have because we actually enjoyed the conversation. We weren't angry with each other, didn't feel threatened by disagreeing.
Yeah. Miller likes to bring up that he used to teach against second blessing and and for Christians can have demons. And I disagreed with him on both those things. I now agree with him on those things. I don't typically publicly say the things I was really concerned with Miller about that he has not recently, but since changed his position on. I just leave those up in the air. People can kind of just assume.
If you're wondering, no, these guys do not talk this fast. I just had to up the speed up to 1.25 to speed things up and kind of keep the thing moving a little bit quick. I really should have, and my apologies, put on the closed caption.
But anyway, we had a good time chatting, and he introduced me to Mike Roundtree. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's Trinitarian now. That's great. So Roundtree was his good friend from college. Miller decided
not college. We knew each other from no. We both had just graduated actually, so it was right after we graduated, and we were both at Jack Deere's church.
That's right. So they're buddies. Miller's planning to go plant a church in Denver. I'm kind of in a space where I just resigned from my church. I needed a new spot to put my gear. Miller says, "Hey, you should hook up the Roundtree. He wants to do a podcast. If you traded him gear for space, I bet you he'd let you use the space." And that's how we started building a relationship with him. When Miller ended up moving to Denver, Roundtree became the co-host. And then due to the internet's technology, we were able to reinstitute Miller as a co-host on the show. And we started a Wednesday podcast where we talked about the gifts of the Spirit. But our Monday podcast is entirely dedicated to theology. So when people ask me why I started the podcast.
Did you catch what he said? The YouTube channel was dedicated to theology, not exposing, not looking to, and they did talk with different people and different theology.
Podcast to tell them, I wanted a free education, and if I had a podcast, I could convince seminarians to come on my podcast and teach me for free. And that seems to have worked for the past 7 or 8 years. So big fan.
So you start off with hey, this is an excellent theology podcast. We're going to talk about gifts of the Spirit. And over time, I've noticed that there's been a shift, and it's been congruent with what's happening in the church globally, it seems, especially in our nation, I think. You guys have shifted into a bit of a different space. How did that happen?
How did we step into the fray, you mean?
Yeah. Yes.
When did we become minor prophets?
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't think any of us, all of us came from charismatic environments. We were all kind of programmed, don't touch the Lord's anointed, don't talk about the abuse of the leader. You're dishonoring. That was a big one where I came from my days at Upper Room. It's all about got to honor your leaders. And so I think what happened was we were interviewing a bunch of people, and I think where it started actually, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but we love the gifts of the Spirit. We really didn't like what we were seeing in the charismatic world. We felt like the gifts were not the main people, that the branding was Bethel, the branding was the Pentecostal world. And we just weren't that. We cared about theology. We felt like the branding was, you check your head at the door, you need to be Spirit-led, not mind-led. The way we were seeing prophecy conducted just seemed to go outside of what we thought prophecy should look like, based on our reading of scripture. And, largely that prophecy should be local and local community under the headship of elders. And so we started doing prophetic reviews, which was, I would say, the first time that we were called heretic hunters.
It was 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020. So, I mean, we've been doing the podcast. Josh.
Ooh, ho. In case you missed it, Joshua said, hey, we started in 2017. Actually, there was another channel that did apologetic charismatic. He started a little bit earlier. Uh, Rod Saunders of Jew and Greek. I followed these guys off and on over the years.
And I co-hosted together all of 2019. When was it in 2020? Was it the end of 2020 going into 2021? Or no, it was right there at the beginning of 2020.
That's correct. Yeah, we had an 8-hour marathon reviewing all of the prophetic words from 2020. Jack Deere came on, Sam Storms came on, Keener came on, Brown came on,
Winger,
Canfish, Winger. I had a core value that said, if we're going to be charismatic, we have to hold to all the charismatic scriptures. So if we're going to be like speak in tongues, we have to also hold to the ones that like talk about how you speak in tongues in an orderly and decent fashion. If we're going to do prophecy, well, we should do all the prophecy stuff, which includes testing prophecy. The only people on the internet, I think at the time, I don't want to be boastful. I'm not trying to like Elijah complex. We're the only one, but I'm pretty confident.
No, it's true.
In 2020, the only people on the internet that were testing prophetic words was Remnant Radio.
Guy, I think you mean one of the few charismatic testing prophetic words. I know a certain lovable pirate that would love to have a word with you.
So like we were like, hey.
No, that's not true. There was other people testing prophetic words, but they were people that were cessationists.
That's what I meant to say. Yes.
So we were the first ones to maybe step in to evaluate publicly through a YouTube broadcast who are charismatics that actually believe in this stuff, and we felt like they were bringing disrepute onto the things that we really valued and loved. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, that's a great catch. That's what I really meant to say. I lost my train of thought there for a second. The only charismatics that were doing this, everyone else who was doing this was cessationist. And we're like, you don't even believe in prophecy, so like it judges your whole judgment is skewed by this.
That's true. When the cessationists, not all of them, the test is like through some bias filter, and that's why I tend to put them like, I'm not sure I can really rely because you're decidedly against. But wait a minute, a danger comes up, and I will chime in on it a little bit after.
Already prejudged.
That's not even testing prophecy, right? That's just everything is in the trash can. That's not diacrino discernment, right?
It would be like trying to give a good example, like, you know, Miller had a lady preach on Sunday at his church, and Wayne Grudem reviewed the sermon. Like, he doesn't believe women should preach on Sunday. Like, everything that's going to be said, no matter how theologically correct it's going to be, you're going to dislike because you disagree with the framework. So it's one of those situations where you go, well, I think there needs to be some honesty to the judging and testing of these prophetic words. And I'm not trying to say cessationists are dishonest, but two of my closest friends, one of them who I started Remnant Radio with, Jeff Gray, and another buddy of mine, Matthew Tarpley, were both destroyed like through spiritual abuse at a church called Deliverance Bible Church in the Houston, the Hurst, Euless, Bedford area. And Deliverance Bible Church, I think the guy was in the movie Finger of God. He had big gauges in his ears, covering tattoos. His name is Cletus. Oh yeah, you know Cletus. Okay, yeah. So my two buddies, you know, their church falls apart because he commands all the churches to dispel and to disassemble and come back. My buddy in Seattle, Jeff, you know, he left 8-10 years of ministry, something like that, comes back to Texas. And then you got videos of Cletus saying, if we ever cast a demon out of your life and you've left this church, we send the demon back in Jesus' name. If we ever healed you, and these recordings that he put on the internet, intentionally put these things on the internet. You know, if you were ever healed in our church and you've left the church, we send that sickness, that cancer back in Jesus' name.
That grieves me when I hear crap like that. That is evil. No, they can't send anything back to you. All right. I can see what got them involved, and I think
wild. So it's like we were sitting here going, you know, what charismatic is going to respond to this? You know, the only people who respond to this nonsense, absolute objective abusive nonsense, are cessationists, and it shouldn't be that way.
It happened with everything, though. With Tarpley's story, with prophecy as well, with Brian Kim and the Acts ministry. Yep. He got roasted. What was it?
He spent 2 years, you know, saving up money. I think it's 2 years, like doing maybe it was a single year. I don't want to put, you know, falsehoods out there, but he spent many months saving up money to go and do 2 years of evangelism with Acts. Gets on the mission field, and then there's a prophetic word that's released that says, hey, we're no longer doing evangelism, we're going to be houses of prayer. And he's like, dude, I spent a year of my life saving money to like come out here and do evangelism, and on a prophetic word, like I just wasted, after going through the process to be a credentialed pastor with Cletus and Deliverance Bible Church, overnight he decides we're not doing campuses. And he's like, well, great. I just wasted 5 years trying to get my degree so that you would like let me go do this. So then he goes with Acts, and he's with Acts, and then he gets on the mission field, and then there's another 2-3 years of my life that's gone. So like, forget this. Like, I'm gonna go to Southern Baptist Church, and like I'm gonna, he became a cessationist, and it's safer. It was easier. And I'm not putting words into Tarpley's mouth. The guy walks with immense integrity. I love the guy to death. He's very open.
Sweet man, very honest.
Yeah, he's so godly. He's so open to God doing things. He would identify as a cessationist. But I mean, who would blame him for the crud he's gone through? So anyway, all that to say, I thought, man, if charismatics were doing their job, maybe there'd be less collateral damage. So I think over time, I became more radicalized. Remnant Radio had already started. He was on some of the earliest episodes of Remnant, Matthew Tarpley was. So he hadn't even gone to Southeast Asia by that time. Anyway, yeah.
I think the thing we've also found is here we are. We love the gifts of the Spirit, seeing a lot of stuff happen, healings, prophecies that were accurate, words of knowledge. There's no way people could know, no data mining to get it. We'd seen all these things. So we weren't going to throw away our value in it, but we'd also seen so much destruction. My own former church and their use of the pulpit, whether it be the gift of teaching or using prophecy to discredit allegations against the pastor. You just see all this kind of stuff. And you've got these arguments that are being built by guys like the Justin Peters and Chris Roseboroughs on the podcast world that they're getting a lot of traction. And their greatest argument is not the scriptures. It's the ad hominem attacks against charismatics. The greatest argument against charismatic giftings are charismatic abuses. And the thing is, they're right to call it out.
You hear what he just said? He said Chris Roseborough and Justin Peters were right to call out the abuses. That's an error about charismatic gift, but he wasn't wrong to point to the character. And unfortunately, one of the problems is this. I'm going to because there's a lot more to the story you're going to want to hear. But this is why it's so important for the minor prophet, Wanda Alger, Blaze of Wake Up and Win, Joshua Simone of Torn Curtain, and please remember Torn Curtain, and even Rod Saunders has kind of joined it, speaking up at times where he can. And there is a growing number. All right? That's why I put in the thumbnail about time, because these guys have a major influence and a help as well. All right, let's continue.
But you'll notice, though, most of the time, it's not an argument about the scriptures. It's if you believe in charismatic giftings, here's what's going to happen to you. Like I saw a Justin Peters quote where he mentions, the common denominator with, basically lists off all these cult leaders is they all believe that God is still speaking outside the Bible. It's like
they also all believe in God.
Yeah, you're right. But you see what I mean? Like that's the kind of things we're hearing, and it's like, okay, we're going to be charismatics, but we also want to have like some bit of integrity when it comes to these things, and we're not going to just let these things go by. So we started critiquing prophetic words online. That's kind of where it started. And then we had a theology broadcast on the side, and then I don't know, stuff started hitting the fan. I mean, I'm no prophet, but I would say if God is doing something, it's pretty observable by the amount of exposure he's done across the board. Ravi Zacharias, then Mike Bickle, and Mike Bickle's exposure. I mean, we're only a year out from this, a little over a year, but that was massive. That was this like grand unveiling, and it caused all of us to go, wait, where?
This video this interview was done a couple weeks ago. The report didn't even come out yet. Oh boy.
Also, we turn a blind eye. What are things that we've observed that we kind of go, that's odd. Why did so-and-so respond that way? Seems like he kind of wants to protect an abusive person or wants to discredit those who are bringing allegations against an abusive person. And you start to pick up on similar rhetoric that you see just across the board, misuse of Matthew 18, a number of other things. And it's like, oh gosh, there's a dumpster fire that we've been in. We didn't even know it. So I don't know. Josh, you may feel differently. How do you guys feel about it? Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, that's fine.
Now yes, they are going to talk about the elephant in the room in just a sec. If you never heard of Remnant, well, guess who some of their guests were.
Well, it's interesting. I've actually noticed how I would attribute it to Remnant, how the different people actually prophesy differently now, knowing that their words are going to get reviewed. And some of
them will send us their words, like Jeremiah Johnson literally sent us his words, and then and then blocked me on Facebook when I started calling him out for abusing his audience by using prophecy to manipulate.
Well, it's a common thing, right? If I don't like what you say, let me block you from everything. And
Oh boy.
and some of it on one hand, it's like the people that should be reviewing prophecy. It's kind of like I wouldn't expect to get good practice on deliverance from people that don't believe in deliverance. That it needs to be somebody that has actively been practicing it. They're going to have the most meaningful contribution when it comes to weighing and judging the practices. When it comes to, and prophecy seems to be the gift that kind of links a lot of this stuff together. And when your reviews first started coming out, you started to see how much of a show it really was, where essentially everybody said anything that they wanted and they were never held accountable. And now some of those.
I'm going to give a simple suggestion for the reform type of those who might be kind of like on the gift. I'm going to encourage you. Pray for these guys. Pray for these hosts and the minor prophets, Blaze, the Remnant Radio, all these guys who are speaking up on these things now. Okay, hey, take it as a win, yeah, because he's right. A lot of time, I'm more likely to listen to the guys who have Bible fully in hand and judging the prophecy according to Scripture, a lot more than just accuracy, and making sure what's being said lines up, and that, and would be good to see them roadmap. So if, let's say, somebody who like Chris Ropo, who is a cessationist of some type. Well, hey, okay, I see how they're doing it, and I'm glad they got off their butt. It's about time. You can say, oh, yeah, I should also. I'm sure it does, but I think you guys get the point. All right? We need to pray that more. And also help, because I'll usually listen more like, oh, yeah, I already heard Chris say this. Okay, I better listen more. I think you guys get the point.
Those same people, they'll give a little bit of a caveat of, well, this is my word for 2025 and beyond. Like, we suddenly turn into Buzz Lightyear of to infinity and beyond. It'll apply at some point in time in the future. I don't know when. So on one hand, it's made people are responding by being more vague in their delivery, and or to where it always applies, is generally applicable, so that it's less likely to be judged. But on the other hand, some people seem to be leaning into this is what I heard from the Lord, and okay with the testing of it. How would you say that your audience has responded?
Actually, for those guys who were deliberately being vague because they don't want to get called on the target, they must not have heard of prophecy bingo. Yeah, it is a thing. You'll have to go to, let's see, Fighting for the Faith. No, I really don't care for that particular video series. I did take a look, and oh boy, Chris does have other videos I think that are more worth the time.
Responded to it.
I mean, I don't know if we could take credit for prophets prophesying differently, or prophets is questionable. I don't even know if we can take that. I mean, what do you think about that, Josh? Do you think our podcast had that? I don't want to.
That's not exactly the question Jeff asked. Jeff asked like how our audience responds to it. I think I'll be honest, Jeff. I am not a good YouTuber. I practice the post and ghost. I don't know if you're familiar with this, where you film your video and then you walk away from it. So like I have a marketing director who like I'm gonna have to pay for her trauma therapy soon because she reads those comments and it's not fair to her. But like she thinks people hate us, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. Or I'll have people at church who go like, hey, like, I'm so sorry you're going through it right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? And like the comments on your recent video. And I'm like, are they bad? And they're like, yeah, they're horrible. I'm like, that's nice. Like your other people's opinion about me doesn't matter. Like it's none of my business what you think. I don't care. Like, I have close friends. I have people who I do ministry with that maybe aren't even close friends. If they want to reach out to me, they can talk to me.
Sorry,
I think
Miller.
I heard Robert Downey Jr. say something like, if you have a problem with me, pick up a phone and call me. And if maybe it was Robert Downey Jr. And if you don't have my phone number, then you probably don't have a problem with me. Like, it's just a figment of your imagination. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to care. Like, I want to care how the people in my church think about me. I want them to think that their pastor walks with integrity and will speak out for innocent and people who and speak against wolves who are in the church. I care how my kids look to their dad in the future. And yeah, dad didn't grow up with a rough life picking fights, but he picked the right kind of fights. I care about what my friends think, but that's about it. I don't really know how people think about it.
I would say though that there has been. I mean, there's a reason people showed up to the conference last fall in October. And 1,100 people come to a Remnant Radio event where we're demonstrating gifts of the Spirit. And a lot of them came out of cessationist backgrounds, or they were theoretical continuationists, but practical cessationists. And then there were a lot that came from various charismatic backgrounds that were like, we were going to swear off the gifts, but we watched the podcast. So I actually do think there's a pretty, the positive response that we've gotten are from the kind of people we wanted to associate with anyways.
Yeah, what they're talking about is they're probably seeing a lot of people who come and look and hope that these guys would show something different. Because there's been a lot of wounded Christians who've been wounded by spiritual abuse. And yeah, well, let me see where we're at recording wise. Okay, I'm gonna stop this video here because this video has gone long enough. What I was going to show you in the video is that they did talk about the guests who used to show up on their channel. And right now, they're not. They used to have Mike Bickle, I think, and all that. And that was before they found out all this stuff. And it was hard to recognize. And because there's a natural tendency to say, oh, wait a minute, that guy isn't, yeah, he's a cessationist. I'm not going to listen to his warning about integrity and all that because his mind's so set against it. Look at, that is not always a wise idea. That is really isn't, and it is causing a lot of problems. And a lot of this camp mentality needs to end. All right, because that is the kind of nonsense that the devil loves. And yes, it is right to speak up on these issues and to give warning. And that's why it's important that we have charismatics who do stand up. I'm glad to see Mike Winger is speaking up on the issue. He's not rushing in saying, okay, let me join the bandwagon. No. Mike is more like, Winger is more like, let me out of here. So he doesn't want it. He's not even looking for it unless he had to. So he's perfectly fine to let some of the other guys do first. Then eventually, okay, and enough evidence comes in, yes. So that's why it's important that we pray for courage and boldness. And yes, there is a conditioning on some. I come from a very different background. I guess it's the Italian in me, and how I was raised to stand up to sing, where it's needed. When I receive healing, that I need it, great, but not everyone's me. And for some, they've been beaten down, as Mike Miller pointed out. Touch not the Lord. Oh, yeah, you get drunk, thrown at, it takes time. You say, okay, so God is at work. He is pushing people like the Remnant radio guys and all these. Now, some of you guys have questions and issues about the teaching. Frankly, I think they should show what it's supposed to look like. All right. I don't know the best way, but I would suggest maybe engaging them in a dialogue on their Facebook page and explain what is troubling. That way, perhaps some dialoguing about what's going on, some of these issues, like why are you guys having these spiritual conference when all this shaking going on, all this stuff? Talk to them about it. So that way there's some kind, and they can say, oh, how can we help heal the obvious wound that you have? Because it is a wounding. And that. And I have to watch myself and make sure I don't get jaded or feel like, okay, can I try? Whoa, that's not good. All right. And the same thing goes for my Lutheran and some of the Reformed type friends too. But we have to get rid of that and rejoice. Yeah, it would have been nice. I know. It would have been nice if they got in here earlier. Okay. Rejoice that they're here now. And don't slam the door in the face because, well, you should have been here. Okay. You don't want to chase people away. All right. Yeah. Forgive them for not showing up at your time schedule. Keep forgiving and move forward. Say, okay, I encourage you to do that. All right. Hey, I hope this video is of value. I will put a link to the original hour and a half. I think it is. It's well over an hour. I didn't show you all of it. There's some other useful and interesting insight. I think some of you will enjoy. Who knows? Maybe some of you will want to review it. And please enjoy the rest of the Minor Prophet. They got some good interviews on there for those of you interested. All right. Hey, hope you have a blessed day. See ya when I see ya.